the Los Angeles Lakers select Lonzo Ball.
All right, LA, thank you very much for tuning in.
This is Julius Randle.
Hey, it's Lonzo Ball.
And you're listening to Lakers Talk.
5 seconds left. Magic down the middle, just what I thought. A hook shot at 12. Good!
This is Coach Luke Walton. You're listening to Lakers Talk on ESPN, LA 710.
All right, welcome back to Lakers Talk. We got Brian Windhorst, covers the NBA for ESPN, joining me on Lakers Talk. How you doing, Brian? I know it's a busy time of the year. Appreciate you taking some time to hop on.
No problem.
So, I know we can ask the obvious questions and where is this player going or where do you think this guy is leaning? But I think one of the questions I wanted to, just with your experience around the NBA, what is the lead up? Like, what's happening today? What's happening tomorrow? What are GMs? What are players? Can you just kind of give maybe a little behind the scenes approach over the next couple of days?
Well, the teams have spent the last couple of months, in some cases a year, laying groundwork. Very rarely do things take place in the last moments or first moments of free agency that have not been set up. In a lot of cases, that comes to managing their salary cap. We don't talk about the Milwaukee Bucks as an option for LeBron because they haven't laid the groundwork to go after LeBron, as an example. The Lakers have spent more than a year laying the groundwork for the free agency here. And beyond the groundwork, you also do background research, which is where not only do you try to find out what's going to be important to the player, but in some cases you find out which direction you pitch the player. I remember vividly seeing a dossier of a high-level free agent at one time, and this team had decided that it was not worth trying to get a relationship with the wife, but instead to get a relationship with the mother. And that the pitch would have to be to the player and the mother, and the wife was a distant part of it. So you do stuff like that, you get that research, and then you prepare your pitch, in that way. But almost always, it comes down to money, and then it comes down, if money is all equal, it comes down to things that the team has difficulty controlling, which is the city, and then the teammates that the guy has. You can control it to a certain extent, but you can't create a superstar out of thin air. And then if you do have a superstar or a star on the team, it helps to have that player involved in the recruiting pitch. You don't want to do that. If you're trying to create a team where you're bringing a star to where you've got a star, you really need to have the incumbent guys on board, whether it's in person in the pitch or whether it comes through some sort of other sort of communication.
Brian Windhorst on Lakers Talk. Brian, how much do you think the players are communicating through this process? Not just today, not just this free agency, but just in general.
It depends. I mean, I think there's some players, like, for example, Paul George and LeBron James. They communicated last year. Neither one of them were free agents. Mm-hmm. But at the time, Paul was going to be traded. The Cavs were trying to trade for him, and they both were a year away from free agency, and they were both going to have their careers significantly impacted by whether they teamed up or not, and so they communicated with each other. And they ended up not coming together. So I'm sure they're communicating to a certain extent. Now, here's the other factor. Both Paul and LeBron are putting together documentaries about their free agency for various reasons. And so that communication may be different this time around because they've got this other order of business to be done. And, Kawhi Leonard doesn't communicate with just about anybody. So I'm not saying that, I don't have Kawhi's phone records, so I don't know for sure. But my guess is that there's not a lot of open communication. The other thing was, I think one of the most famous times this happened was when Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, and LeBron James all got together in 2010. It's important to realize a couple of things. Number one, they all have the same agent and the same agency. And so everything was being negotiated by the same person. That's not the case in this scenario. Paul George, LeBron, and Kawhi Leonard as the three big free agents, all completely different representations, all completely different sets of goals. So while I do expect them to communicate, just as we saw Chris Paul with James Harden last year, there's a little bit different set of circumstances this time around.
Obviously, we'll focus just for a quick second on LeBron James. I just want to get your take on this. Obviously, you've followed LeBron for a long time, and he has until Friday to pick up his $35.6 million player option with the Cavs. Which team would you say is leading the race right now? Is it down to a couple teams, or do you think there's still a lot of different options there for LeBron?
Well, I do not expect LeBron to pick up that option. And if he doesn't, that'll essentially eliminate Houston and San Antonio, who I think are on the end of the list. And it'll basically become Los Angeles, Lakers, Cleveland, and Philadelphia, because the Lakers and Philly would have the cap space to sign them outright, which is what you'd need, and then the Cavs would have the rights option. So I think if he indeed does not pick up that option, which I don't expect him to, I think it comes down to those three teams, and I really think it'll be between LA and Cleveland. And I think it's close, and I think going both directions has advantages and disadvantages. I think there's a leap of faith in both directions, and I think that's one of the things LeBron's probably thinking about daily, if not hourly, right now.
Brian, how much of an impact do you think? Obviously, Magic is president of basketball operations for the Lakers. What kind of role do you think in LeBron's decision is the fact that a legend like Magic Johnson obviously succeeded in the league, but everything that he's done off the court as well? Do you think that has a big impact on his decision come July 1st?
I don't think LeBron cares that Magic is a successful business. I think he cares about it on a personal level. Mm-hmm. I think he has great respect for him in that regard. But the fact that Magic is a great businessman, I think if LeBron is picking the Lakers, especially if he's picking the Lakers in a scenario where Paul George stays in Oklahoma City, what he's basically gambling is that the Lakers and Rob Pelinka and Magic Johnson and, ownership, Jeannie Buss, he's basically casting a vote that he believes that they can build a great team around him, and that he will be a drawing card, and the city of Los Angeles will be a drawing card, and the Lakers aura will be a drawing card. That's what would essentially would be betting on, and so he'd have to believe in Magic Johnson. He'd have to believe in the Laker brand, which has not had a good 5 years. But that's because he probably would. What's there now is, there's some positives, but it's not a ready-made situation. It would be a significant leap of faith. And, for as much as Magic and Rob are respected, I don't think that they have proven that they can build a organization yet. So it will be a leap of faith. But I will say this, when LeBron came to Cleveland, he didn't know anything about David Griffin. Yep. He didn't know anything about about some of the things that they could do. He just took a leap of faith, and it ended up working out for him.
Brian Windhorst covers the NBA for ESPN on Lakers Talk. Brian, I think in the past you've at least for Laker fans, you've attached Paul George and LeBron James together, and like you stated a little bit earlier, there's many reasons for that. How much do you think those two are still tied to the hip? If Paul George decides, I'm going to stay in Oklahoma, do you think that has a major effect on what LeBron does, whether it be going with the Cavs, the Lakers, the Philadelphia 76ers, or do you think that's a little bit separate now?
That's why if he comes to L.A., it's basically a leap of faith for the Laker organization.
Yeah.
I think it would be LeBron's preference to not be the drawing card. It would be LeBron's preference to be the last guy through the door, not the first guy through the door. But if there's no other scenario out there, like if he looks at Cleveland and says, I don't like Cleveland's chances of building a consistent contending team around him for the next, whatever he's got left, 3 to 5 years, and he looks at the Lakers and says, well, they don't have it yet. I prefer that they have it. I would prefer that Brandon Ingram had made the All-Star team last year. I would prefer that Kyle Kuzma was a third-team All-NBA player, but okay, I believe that they still have the cap space and they still have the power of LA and they still control their future draft picks and they still have young players that are available in trade. If Paul George isn't coming with him, it would be a leap of faith. But I could sit there and see and understand why he'd look at the future of the Lakers and the future of the Cavs and choose the Lakers. But I don't necessarily think he would be fully 100% comfortable that it was for sure going to work out.
Brian, do you think earlier on, let's say 6 months ago, 8 months ago or so, you felt more confident that Paul George, the chances of him re-signing in Oklahoma City was less likely and probably the chances of him coming to Los Angeles was more likely? Do you still feel that way, or do you feel that the Thunder really have a legitimate chance of re-signing this guy to a long-term deal?
This is what my opinion always has been. Nothing really matters until you get down to the buzzer. It doesn't matter. It's kind of like an NBA game. Just because the team is up by 24 points in the second quarter doesn't mean the game is over. Just because the team's up by 12 to start the fourth quarter doesn't mean the game is over. It really comes down to what the score is at the very end. And so where Paul George's head is on June 30th, July 1st is what matters. And he may have indeed pretty much come to terms with what his choice is and what he's going to do. It doesn't mean he'll 100% do it, but that's the way I always feel. You can only really evaluate the circumstances with where they are at the moment, and that's the moment we're about to arrive at. And I do think that there's a strong feeling that the Oklahoma City has a good chance to keep him.
Brian, let's just hypothetically speaking say LeBron stays in Cleveland, Paul George stays with the Thunder. What do you think becomes the front office focus? You think there's still an opportunity to go grab a big name? You think they would take a chance on a DeMarcus Cousins or any of these other names out here, or do you think the attention starts shifting to 2019?
Yeah, I would definitely do that. I would keep my situation flexible. I would keep my cap space flexible. You can use it, but I think you should sign guys to 1-year contracts. I know that doesn't make people happy, but I thought that the Lakers had a really nice finish to the season, and Lonzo was better at the end than he was at the beginning, which is what you want. Ingram got better as season went along. Overall, as a team, they were better at the end than they were at the start, and so really what you'd hope to spend next season doing is increasing the value of your players, not only just to see, not only for the fact that you might trade them, but also for the possibility that somebody might want to come to them. It's hard when you make the choice to build through free agency, which is what the Lakers have done by clearing out their salary cap. You really roll the dice. So, for example, let me just offer you the Miami Heat. They tried to build through free agency in 2010, and it was a jackpot. They get Chris Bosh, they get LeBron James, and it's glorious for 4 years. Mm-hmm. They elected to try to rebuild through free agency for the last few years, and they end up with Dion Waiters, Kelly Olynyk, James Johnson. Not exactly the same thing. And to me, I think they made a terrible mistake because I would rather take my medicine and take 1-year contracts, even though that's not the ideal thing to do for the upcoming season, than have my entire cap bogged down with Tyler Johnsons and Hassan Whitesides of the world that have very little value because of the length of their contracts. So if the Lakers miss on the 3 free agents or the 2 free agents plus Kawhi that they go after, I would say take a step back, keep your options open. They're getting closer all the time.
All right, Brian, final question. Haven't heard too much about DeMarcus Cousins. How do you think his summer plays out? Do you think he goes back to the Pelicans? The Pelicans offer him some good money, obviously him coming off an injury. Or do you think that maybe the Pelicans, with the success that they had in the playoffs, they don't tie up all that money to Cousins?
I think the Pelicans are prepared to pay the luxury tax next year. And so what I would do is, basically you're going to be paying DeMarcus Cousins to rehab for this season. So I would give him a 1-year contract with a team option for year 2 that you have control over. He's not going to want that. He's going to want player options. He's going to want, more guaranteed money. That's what my offer to him would be. And, we can debate how much of the second year would be guaranteed, but the team has to protect himself. That's a 12 to 15-month injury. I don't even know if you'd see who DeMarcus Cousins would be until March or April. So I don't think that anybody should count on DeMarcus Cousins to do anything next season. And so it's kind of like Elton Brand. Elton Brand, if you remember, tore his Achilles.
Right around the same age, too.
Yeah. Came back and had a good month or two at the end of the season, and it convinced the Sixers to give him a bunch of money. I would only go 1 year guaranteed if I were any team with him. But the crazier things have happened, and teams can talk themselves into anything. If I were the Lakers, I wouldn't go near that at all again, unless you have a complete option or a heavy option. Most of it non-guaranteed in year two, because if the Lakers signed him, it would be you'd be paying him for the first year to rehab.
Brian, awesome stuff as always. I know it's going to be a busy couple weeks for you, but really appreciate you taking some time and hopping on Lakers Talk.
All right, take care.